Welcome to Media Melanie Talks TV. Today's topic, The Bear Season 3, Episodes 1 through 5. If you're a fan of the series, then you noticed Hulu dropped the entire third season, all 10 episodes, in its entirety, all at one time. And I've got to say, summer's been really busy. I've kind of appreciated the weekly episode drop formula on other streamers, looking at you, Apple TV Plus. However, I can't change what Hulu did, so I had to make a decision. Was I going to sit and binge the entire thing all at once? As much as I wanted to, time has been a little iffy, as previously mentioned. So I watched the first episode tomorrow and then the second episode, and then I spaced out the other 3 of the first half one night at a time. So I'm now up to episode 5. I do plan to finish the season soon, and once I do, I will drop my thoughts on the second half of season 3. Until then, let's get into the season 3 premiere. Wow, what a departure from the normal vibe of The Bear. We're very used to seeing this kind of aggressive, in your face. Tomorrow, the premiere of season 3 was the complete opposite. It was very internalized. It took place mostly in Carmi's head shortly after the incident at the end of season 2 when he had a meltdown after being locked inside of the walk-in. So we're seeing the aftermath of that, but we're also learning more about what makes his character tick, a little bit more on his background and character story. I don't know that I loved the episode, but what I did appreciate was that it is so different. We got a more introspective look into Carmi's head. We didn't get a lot of forward movement. However, this approach was really interesting. It felt very different. And I've got to wonder, did they do this similar to how a competition reality show contestant gets immunity and they do the next challenge and either take a wild risk or play it safe because they know they're not going home? I kind of feel like that's what The Bear did. It has received lots of acclaim, very popular show. So they took a complete left turn. They did a 180. They did something different. And I feel like it's a little polarizing. I enjoyed it, but for half the time, I'm thinking, what is this? Why are we not hearing anything? Why are we not getting answers to things? I like answers. Once the season gets going, we do see a little bit more on the action side. We're seeing a little bit more of that comedy, even though, just a note, I don't necessarily categorize The Bear as a comedy. I do think it's a dramedy, and with awards season, I do wish there would be some sort of reconfiguration with comedies and dramedies. I don't know, maybe it needs its own category, but there are so many other true comedies out there, and I don't think The Bear checks that box. However, they are still bringing that comedic aspect. One of the comedic moments we see is courtesy of guest star John Cena. He plays Sammy fucking Fack and appears in episode 5, Children, prior to the Chicago Tribune coming to review The Bear in their newspaper. Along with his brothers, Neil and Ted, they get into it and introduce their family tradition of haunting one another. It is pretty hilarious. It goes back to that in-your-face, back and forth, fast-paced, The Bear vibe that we're used to. And John Cena is one of many cameos and guest stars that we get in season 3, and something the show has done really well in prior seasons. So in addition to John Cena, we also have Josh Hartnett starring as Tiff's fiance, Frank. And there was quite a moment between Richie and Frank when he dropped his daughter Ava off at his house. And note, Taylor Swift's Long Live is playing in the background during that scene. Josh Hartnett's character, Frank, is also pretty funny, and I did appreciate the scene between him and Richie. Another guest star, we see Sarah Ramos, who plays Richie's friend from the restaurant he used to work at, and you may know her from Parenthood, which for me was one of my favorite shows before This Is Us came along. Love Parenthood. In terms of cameos for the rest of the season, we are going to see a little bit of Bradley Cooper. Tina's real-life husband, David Zayas, actually makes an appearance as well. We know him from Dexter. That will happen in the episode Napkins, directed by Ayu Adebri, which I can't wait for and looks to be the highest rated episode so far this season on Rotten Tomatoes. Other returning guest stars include Jamie Lee Curtis, John Bernthal, Olivia Colman, Will Poulter and John Mulaney, Joel McHale, Christopher Zucchero, Jillian Jacobs, Robert Townsend. This show is absolutely packed with guest stars and cameos. There are also a number of real-life chef cameos, which is very cool. I do feel like the series does lean a bit on the star-studded power in these cameos. However, it does work, and some of them are used in really understated ways, so I think it makes more of an impact when they use less of some of these people sometimes. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but some general thoughts on season 5 so far. It did start out differently, as I mentioned, in the premiere tomorrow. Of course, that internalized vibe. I'm sensing this doom and gloom with Sugar's pregnancy, Natalie's pregnancy. I just feel she's very in her head. She seems to be physically exhausted and probably mentally exhausted as well with everything she's dealing with the restaurant. And again, I haven't finished the season yet, so I don't know what happens. I'm hoping everything plays out just fine. Healthy baby, healthy mom. But I do feel this kind of sense or underlying situation, and hopefully everything works out okay there. Season 4 of The Bear has already been renewed and they plan to start filming it quickly, so we can definitely expect another season. I am curious to see how this season stacks up in terms of acclaim, reviews, awards, because it has been met with so many accolades. Could this season be a third season slump instead of a sophomore slump? I'm not sure. I haven't finished it, but in some of the things I'm reading, it does seem like people aren't feeling it as much as they did in season 1 and 2. Is it because there's the departure into fine dining? I still feel like we're getting that same character growth. We're learning more backstory, and we're still getting the very real vibe of the connections and what it's like to really work in the restaurant industry. I've never worked in the restaurant industry. I did work in my summer camp kitchen for a summer, not the same thing at all. I am curious about the pacing for the rest of the season, if it will continue to get a little more aggressive as it goes, or if it does have a little bit of a softer feel to it. If you're watching The Bear season 3, I'd love if you dropped a comment and told me a couple of different things. A, how do you feel about the binge watching model? Did you binge it all at once? Are you watching weekly episodes? What were your thoughts on the premiere? That episode has really stuck with me, and I don't know if it's in a good way or a bad way. It was just so different, and I don't know if it was necessarily needed or if it was just advice to step outside the box, bring the viewer something a little different. But either way, I would like to know how you guys feel about it. What do you think about the season if you have watched the whole thing? Like I said, I need to finish, and I will be back with my thoughts, so stay tuned. Media Melanie, clicking off.